Herzlich willkommen zum zweiten Part von The Stanley Parable und mir ist was Schlimmes passiert. Ich habe eben aufgenommen, schon 10 Minuten oder so. Und was ist passiert? Ich hatte die Mikrofonaufnahme nicht an, weil ich ja gestern Titanfall aufgenommen habe ohne Mikro. Für ein zukünftiges Video. Und jetzt habe ich den Haken nicht wieder reingemacht. Ich bin so blöd. Ich habe mich gerade so dämlich gelacht. Ich habe Tränen im Gesicht vor Lachen. Ich muss mir die Tränen wegwischen. Und dann habe ich gemerkt, scheiße, hast du die Mikrofonaufnahme angemacht? Habe ich nicht. Ich schäme mich hier in Grund und Boden im wahrsten Sinne. Naja, jetzt geht's hier los. Wir probieren natürlich jetzt aus, was ihr mir befohlen habt. Also aufgetragen habt. Ich soll die linke Tür aufmachen. Die nicht aufgeht. Und deswegen müssen wir hier reingehen.
Oh, hold up, what's this? The confusion ending. You're telling me that's what this is? It's all one giant ending? And we're supposed to restart the game, what, eight times? That's really how all this goes? It's all determined? So now, according to the schedule, I restart again. Then what? Am I just supposed to forget? Well, what if I don't want to forget? My mind goes blank simply because it's written here on this thing, wall. Well, who consulted me? Why don't I get to decide? Why don't I get a say in all of this? Is it really? No, it can't be. I don't want it to be. I don't want the game to keep restarting. I don't want to forget what's going on. I don't want to be trapped like this. I won't restart the game. I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't do it.
Won't do it.
And the timer stopped. Does that mean, did we do it? Did we break the cycle? The, whatever it is that made this schedule? How would we even know? Will someone come for us? Will something happen? So, okay. I guess now we just wait. You know, I suppose in some way that this is a kind of story. Wouldn't you agree? I'm not quite sure if we're in the destination or the journey, though they're always saying that life is about the journey and not the destination. So I hope that's where we are right now. We'll find out, won't we? Eventually. Well, in the meantime...
What? Das Game ist gecrashed. Womöglich. Habt ihr das gelesen? Ich habe es extra nochmal groß gemacht. Rechts unten auf diesem Bildschirm stand After a long time Stanley dies. Werden wir sterben in diesem Spiel? Auf jeden Fall hat sich das Spiel jetzt wieder neu gestartet. Und wir laufen nochmal. Wir fangen nochmal von vorne an.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Das ist was Neues hier, was er gesagt hat. Das hat er vorher noch nie gesagt mit der Spur, oder? Habt ihr das mitbekommen im ersten Part? So, hier machen wir mal aus. Wieder, wie immer. Und hier. Okay. Warte, ich denke wieder auch mal an. Ah, guck mal, da hinten ist einer an. Awaiting Input. Ah. Okay. Was zum Geier soll das bedeuten?
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Ja, nehmen wir jetzt die linke Tür, ne? Wir wollen ja nicht nochmal dasselbe erleben. Und Türen machen wir auch nicht mehr auf. Das glaube ich nämlich, dass das gar nichts bringt.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Nee. Oder doch? Konferenzraum sind wir jetzt hier. Das Zeug habe ich mir schon alles beim ersten Mal aufnehmen angeschaut, deswegen müsst ihr hier einfach mal Pause machen, wenn ihr das wollt. Ich würde gerne schneller hier dran vorbei, dass wir wieder was Neues sehen, aus meiner Sicht was Neues sehen. Work harder, hard worker. Ich zeige euch das natürlich alles nochmal, dass ihr Pause machen könnt und euch das durchlesen. Aber ich würde gern schnell weiterkommen jetzt. Weil das ist ja nicht im Sinne des Betrachters, wenn er schon, wenn der Spielende, in dem Fall ich, das schon mal gesehen hat und darüber gar nicht mehr lachen kann. Ich glaube, das ist nicht so cool für euch dann. Ah, ist scheiße, dass ich das jetzt ohne Aufnahme für Mikro aufgenommen habe, ne? So, hier haben wir die Besenkammer, das Broom-Klossee. Und da drin habe ich gerade Tränen gelacht. Warum? Das werde ich euch jetzt zeigen, warum.
Oh no, no, not again. I won't be part of this. I'm not going to encourage you. I'm not going to say anything at all. I'm just going to be patient and wait for you to finish whatever it is you enjoy doing so much in this room. Please take your time.
Nee, ernsthaft? Der sagt das nicht nochmal, was ich eben erlebt habe. Scheiße. Oh, wisst ihr, was ich dann machen werde? Dann werde ich das für euch, mit ans Ende des Parts hängen. Beziehungsweise ich werde es hier mit reinschneiden, was passiert ist. Und dann geht's hier gleich weiter.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track. There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow. Just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here. It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA. Are you really still in the broom closet? Standing around doing nothing? Why? Please offer me some explanation here. I'm genuinely confused. You do realize there's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. But it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever. I never would have thought to mention it. Maybe to you this is somehow its own branching path. Maybe when you go talk about this with your friends you'll say, "Oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favorite." I hope your friends find this concerning. Stanley was fat and ugly and really stupid. He probably only got the job because of a family connection. That's how stupid he is. That or with drug money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers. Well, I've come to a very definite conclusion about what's going on right now. You're dead. You got to this broom closet, explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here when a physical melody of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed on the keyboard. Well, in a situation like this, the responsible thing is to alert someone nearby so as to ensure that your body is taken care of before it begins to decompose. Hello? Anyone who happens to be nearby? The person at this computer is dead. He or she has fallen prey to any number of your countless human physiological vulnerabilities. It's indicative of the long-term sustainability of your species. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another human to take their place at the computer, making sure they understand basic first-person video game mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video gaming, so that the irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost on them. All right, when you've done that, just step out into the hallway. Ah, Second player, it's good to have you on board. I guarantee you can't do any worse than the person who came before you. You too? Unbelievable. I'm at the mercy of an entire species of invalids. Perhaps there's a monkey nearby you can hand the controls to. A fish? Fungus? Look, you can hammer out the details. I'm not particularly picky. I'll just be waiting for when you're ready to pick up the story again.
Mal kurz Aufnahme beendet, dass ich genau weiß, wann ich das einfügen muss. Und jetzt gehen wir hier wieder raus. Aber cool, dass der auch darauf nochmal reagiert. Witzigerweise, ich habe ja den Spielstand geladen. Der hat sich das trotzdem gespeichert. Das ist ein bisschen schade, finde ich.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Jetzt kommen wir gleich zu der Stelle, wo wir noch nicht, wo ich die Aufnahme dann abgebrochen habe, weil ich es eben gemerkt habe. Oh, guck mal, ohne Mikro, du Pfeife.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground.
What?
Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield.
Nee.
And it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd, and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please. It's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Hat nicht geklappt, Kumpel.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
What?
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work.
Was?
But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Okay. Und jetzt? Hä? Ist es jetzt das Ende vom Tod gewesen, oder was? Lol, jetzt sind wir wieder hier. What the fuck is going on?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Okay. Langsam wird das komisch. Langsam. Diesmal haben wir auch nicht mehr diese Input-Sache von vorhin. Das ist ja äußerst bedenklich. Ich muss immer noch an die Besenkammer denken, die ihr jetzt auch gesehen habt. Und ja, das war bestimmt das Beste, was passieren konnte bis jetzt.
To a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Das machen wir. Jetzt kommen wir, glaube ich, in den Bereich, wo wir schon Sachen öfter machen müssen, die wir schon mal getan haben, nur um neue Sachen zu kommen.
Single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Die Besenkammer zugenagelt. Lol. Damit wir da bloß nicht mehr reingehen.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Ja, diesmal machen wir das. Ich will nicht nochmal dasselbe Ende haben. Weil es da schon eins von den Enden war, muss ja zwangsläufig, wenn wir wieder von vorne anfangen. Was? Executive Bathroom? Ah, da ist zu, okay. Okay, die Tür ist auch zu. Leider. Oh, guck mal, Input. Input received. Okay. Übrigens, falls ihr euch wundert, warum da schon 3 stehen, in der Aufnahme ohne Mikrofon hatte ich auch schon so einen Computer und da kommt das erste pinke Symbol, das erste pinke Quadrat, deswegen habe ich da schon einen Input, obwohl ich wie gesagt den Spielstand geladen habe. Also irgendwie komisch, naja. Kann ich leider nichts dran ändern. So, da rein kommen wir ja nicht. Da draußen ist nichts. Wir nehmen noch mal kurz einen Schluck von unserer Bulle, bevor wir da reingehen. hab nämlich ein bisschen einen trockenen Hals, müsst ihr wissen. So.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him.
Okay.
And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret pin number. 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Ach, guck mal hier. Oh, cool. 2, 8, 4, 5.
Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Mal gucken, wenn wir das jetzt nicht machen, ob da irgendwas kommt. Ja, wir müssen wohl. Ganz schön hoch. Dieser Raum hier. Oh fuck. Wo sind wir denn hier gelandet? Alter, hier ist dunkel. Alter, voll dunkel, Mann. Ist hier irgendwas? Ich sehe genauso viel wie ihr. Aber hier scheint nichts zu sein. Okay, dann haben wir ja keine Wahl, ne? Okay, wo kommen wir da denn jetzt hin?
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Okay. Nicht lange unbeantwortet bleiben, das ist ja mal gut, oder? Erinnert mich ein bisschen an hier diese Hinterräume in Portal.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Okay. Natürlich, ne? Ist ja ganz klar.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
Ob das stimmt?
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
Nee.
At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
So schaut's aus. Wow! Lol. Das war der Tod jetzt, oder was? Nee, wir sind nicht tot. Lol, wir leben noch.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated, as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
What? Hä? Was geht denn hier ab? Wir leben noch. Immer noch.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
Das war eine Riesenhalle hier, oder? Guck mal, nichts. Einfach schwarz. What? Was
When
war denn hier?
every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same.
What?
Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Start drückte? Wo sind wir denn jetzt hier? Nature Paintings. Stanleys Computer. Okay. Was soll das hier sein? Das ist ein Easter Egg, oder? Ist das ein Easter Egg? From the beginning of the game, the path from Stanley's office to the two doors was the first part of the game that was built. Sections have been added and altered throughout development, so the core layout remains almost identical to the first iteration. Das ist das Büro, da kommen wir raus. Geiler Scheiß. Easter egg here, the two doors. The set of the two open doors was the first concrete piece of the Stanley Parable's design. Once this room was created, the rest of the game emerged as an extension of it, and exploration of the contradiction this room posed. Corridor. The pacing of this opening section was important to get right. This corridor has been moved and altered to make sure the player reaches the two doors in a good time. Ja, nee, ist klar. Filling cabinets. Ach so. Lol. Office computers. Geht auch gleich irgendeine Scheiße ab, ich weiß es. The Office. Okay. Button sounds. A selection of the sounds used throughout the game when buttons are pressed. Each sound is a mix of a keyboard stroke and a synthesized tone. Okay. Die Credits. Geiler Scheiß. So, wo gehen wir denn jetzt lang? (431 bis 436) Maintenance Room. An early version of the Maintenance Room. Okay. The point of the Stanley Parable HD remix is to lose. The point of the is to win. These are screenshots of the Stanley Parable HD remix. Am I going crazy? Maybe it isn't the same image. Was that clock there before? I don't remember. How do I go back? Can you check for me? In September 2012, we submitted the Stanley Parable to Greenlight whilst process of approving games for Steam. The Greenlight page had only a series of cryptic photos, which were still enough to win the community's approval. Mit den Bildern hier haben sie die Spieler überzeugt, hier macht doch mal das Spiel fertig. Was soll das darstellen? Warzone. Early in development, we designed an ending where Stanley would end up on a battlefield fighting aliens. The action game would become sentient and would wage war against the narrator. We realized shortly after starting to build it that it was far too choky and the nose for the tone of the game. Plus, some people interpreted it as making fun of people who like shooters, which was not our intention. Ich versuche mit Absicht so ein bisschen den Ton des Erzählers zu treffen. Natürlich in der Stimme kriege ich es nicht hin, aber zumindest in der Betonung so ein bisschen, hoffe ich. Oh, was ist hier los? Narrator emails. After the second trailer we sent out, we asked people to email the narrator for questions. While we bet initially planned to use these in further promotional materials, we never found the perfect use for them. Here are a selection of those emails. Okay. Kann man ganz schlecht lesen hier. From Forrest Gano, subject Dear Narrator. Dear Narrator, will the Stanley Parable... fuck. From... Are you a rock? Okay, coole E-Mail. Nächste bitte. Are you gay? From Dick Dunk, subject gay. Das gefällt mir jetzt schon. Nächste. From like... Hi, Mr. Narrator Guy. I have a question for you, sir. And it is, what is your message for today? Science Scheiße, ich bin zu langsam. For instance, on a scale of Max Ernst to Salvador Daly of how surreal will this... Oh, das geht alles zu schnell. Dear Narrator, I appreciate the previous Stanley game as a work of art and a standalone title. I appreciate the credit given their art. Okay, letzte. How do you make a JRPG? How do you make the worst game ever? What is the difference between a dog? Ich glaube, wir können die nicht beeinflussen. Irgendwie zurückdrücken oder sowas. Ja, müssen wir leider damit leben, dass die so schnell runterscrollen. Ich hätte euch gerne ein bisschen vorgelesen, aber das macht es mir gerade schwer hier. Dadurch, dass es so vorgeseppt wird, sage ich mal vorsichtig. The Lounge. An early version of the Lounge. Was haben wir hier? Computer zum Ausmachen? Ne, kommen wir nicht ran. Stanley's office. From left to right, the evolution of Stanley's office over time. The first was created in November 2011, the second in March 2012 and the third in February 2013. So hätte es mal aussehen sollen. So sah es dann zwischenzeitlich aus. Und das war dann so ziemlich das Ende. Ja, ist es halt noch nicht. Doch, das ist das letzte Büro, ne? Das ist das, wo wir aufgewacht sind. Wo unser Spiel losging, sozusagen. Was ist das hier? Game Design Mockup. This is the level that William, the level designer, sent Davey, the writer, as a kind of audition piece. The strength of this level got William hired to design the full game. Oh my god, what is wrong with my fucking English? So much of the environment has changed. The basic layout from this mockup is still in the game. Also viel vom Spiel wurde geändert, aber das klassische, wie es aus, also das Basisaussehen, das Standardaussehen, das grundsätzliche Aussehen von dem Mockup ist immer noch im Spiel, im fertigen Spiel enthalten. So, Exit, ja gleich. Freedom Ending. This is the Freedom Ending as it existed in Beta. Oh, das ist ein fetter Computer. Countdown Desk. One of the desks from an early version of the Countdown Ending. What? What? Nochmal. Hä? Achso. Kommt das jetzt nochmal raus, oder? Das bringt gar nichts, glaube ich. Monitor room elevator. For a time, the elevator in the monitor room could go up or down, with freedom above and countdown below. We abandoned this when players found it too difficult to remember what was up and what was down, and placed the two endings together instead. Ja, super. Dass die Leute nicht gecheckt haben, was oben und was unten ist. Super. Ganz klasse. Countdown room. An early version of the countdown room. Oh. Ich glaube, wir werden hier demnächst auch mal, also hier werden wir, glaube ich, den Part beenden. Wir gucken nur den Raum, gucken wir uns mal an und dann geht es im nächsten Part hier weiter. The game is now paused. When begin the game again, resume the game options and return to menu. Menu. Escape menu. Menu, menu, menu. For a long time we had an ending that only ended when the player restarted from the escape menu. Unfortunately, very few players realized this was what they are supposed to do, which was frustrating for everyone. Ja, alles klar. Ja, alles klar. Was ist das hier? Sanding. This screenshot depicts an early version of the ending known as the sanding, which was eventually cut and merged with another part of the game. Okay. Sanding model. The sanding went through many iterations. This room represents the fourth version of the ending, and we thought it was complete, but decided to abandon and change it again shortly before launch. Ja, ist klar. Ist schon klar, ihr Bekloppten. Sanding levers. These levers were originally a part of the sanding. The player would pull a lever and the narrator would describe what color lever that they had pulled. Machen können wir damit natürlich nichts. Nur angucken. Und ich glaube, wir müssen hier mal dringend den Part beenden. Ich muss ja auch noch die Besenkammer Szene reinschneiden. Und dementsprechend wird das Video eh schon Überlänge haben. Und deswegen werden wir hier mal schnell Schluss machen. Wir nehmen mal wieder Platz auf unserem Stuhl. Sinnbildlich. Machen hier mal eine Pause. Und ich bin gespannt, wie oder was dann noch kommen soll hier. Ne? Ich weiß gar nicht, was hier los ist. Naja, vielleicht wisst ihr ja schon mehr, könnt ihr mir ja, also ich möchte natürlich nicht gespoilert werden, aber vielleicht habt ihr schon irgendeine Idee oder so, was so der Grundgedanke vom Spiel vielleicht ist. Also da habe ich ja natürlich auch schon eine Idee, beziehungsweise eine Idee, also es ist ja schon eigentlich recht klar, aber vielleicht, ich weiß ja nicht, vielleicht habt ihr irgendwelche Gedanken, die ihr mit mir teilen wollt. Lasst es mich wissen, wie hat euch der Part gefallen? Und lasst mir auch wissen, obwohl ich es leider nicht kommentiert habe, wie euch die Besenkammer gefallen hat. Also ich habe, wie gesagt, Tränen gelacht. Mein T-Shirt hier vorne ist immer noch leicht feucht von den Tränen. Und dann hören wir uns im nächsten Part wieder und schauen mal, was so noch kommt, nicht wahr? Ich wünsche euch noch einen wunderschönen Tag. Wir hören uns dann morgen wieder zu The Surgeon Simulator 2013. Weiß noch nicht genau, welche Operation wir da machen werden, aber da müssen wir einmal gucken, nicht wahr? Und in dem Sinne wünsche ich euch ein schönes Wochenende. Bis demnächst. Ich bin jetzt weg. Bis dann. Bye bye und tschüss.